Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Hi, and welcome back. This is Chuck Blakeman, and today we're going to talk about an age-old problem in business development. Everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. And we're going to talk about 4 principles that will help us solve that problem. So how do we flip this script? How do we get people to want to buy from us instead of us selling at them? Today I'll share those 4 principles, and I think these will help solve the problem. We're talking about one of the biggest hurdles in business development, how to get people to actually want to listen to you and be truly interested in what you have to offer. As the title says, the hurdle is nobody wants to be sold. I don't know anyone who wants to be aggressively pursued by a salesperson who wants to corner them, stab them with their business card, and be subjected to a 45-minute slide deck. So does anybody ever want to be sold anything? I know I don't. I actively dislike being followed around by the clipboard vultures in a furniture store or having people in a booth at a conference trying to convince me I need to stop and meet their need to be listened to. I have no interest in being used to serve the interests of someone selling at me. So while virtually nobody wants to be sold anything, the interesting flip side to that coin is that everybody wants to buy. We love buying, and we just don't like being sold. This weird relationship with purchasing things and services has been haunting the sales process since the factory system invented the modern pushy salesperson. Multiple sales gurus have rightly written very popular books about it, although too often they don't offer much in the way of a relational solution to it. So what if we could move away from clever proposals, fancy slide decks, leading questions, or persistent stalking? What if we could actually turn all this all around and have people actually lean into us and want to buy? Is it more than possible? I think it is, and it's really not even hard. And once you've learned how, you'll never go back to selling at people. I want to share an important aside today that applies to all our podcasts and will help us with this one specifically. All my podcasts are intended to share 3 useful things for business owners and leaders: principles, practices, and tools. Principles are very different than theories or philosophies, both of which have a somewhat limited value in business. A principle is not a good idea or a clever saying. A principle is an overarching guiding thought or idea that gives context for the practices and the tools in the trenches of our everyday. A good principle can also help us develop our own practices and tools by simply referring to the true north of that simple principle. If I'm saying to myself, I don't know what to do next, I can refer to the principle, which could guide me to a practice or a tool I've forgotten I already have, or it could guide me to develop a new practice or tool. So principles are a very practical true north that guide everything we do. Once we have a solid principle, we can then express it using practices and tools. Now that we have our arms around the concept of a principle, it's easier to talk about the next 2, both practices and tools together, which actually helps us see the difference. Practices are activities we can do to express a principle in the trenches, like block scheduling, texting, holding an event, showing up on social media, calling somebody, building a great process. If you can't come up with a practice to express a principle, it's possible you're dealing with a theory or a philosophy, both of which are so high level that they don't readily lend themselves to being easily applied in the real world. A principle should easily lend itself to becoming a practice. We'll show an example of that in a minute. Tools go hand in hand with practices. They are useful for making it easier to practice something. So a practice is something you do. It's an activity. And a tool is something that helps you with that activity. A simple illustration would be the practice of texting someone requires the tool of a phone and an app. Let's talk about an example of principles, practices, and tools working together. One principle of business I work with is consistency. It builds trust and familiarity and is the cornerstone of delivering the same great product or service every time. That's not theory. That's not philosophy. It is hardcore success strategy. Consistency is the foundational block for building trust. If you don't have consistency, you won't have trust, and nothing else you will do will overcome that problem. So the principle is we need consistency. Let's talk about a practice. That would be a way of working out that principle in the day-to-day. One very important practice to express the principle of consistency would be to create processes around important functions. Write them down and build your product or service using that same process every time. That is the practice of using processes to express the principle of consistency. So consistency is the principle, building a process is the practice. The third leg of the stool would be a tool or tools that help you develop those processes. One great tool for building processes would be, the right software for whatever process you are wanting to practice. The right tool might make it easier to build and manage the process so we get consistent results for our customers every time. In short, the principle is be consistent. The practice is create and use processes to build your chair. And the tools might be the right software and the right tools for making the chair, and maybe the best website for selling the chair. Great businesses are built around all three: principles, practices, and tools. Okay, that's a long way to go to get to where we're going today. This was free, no extra charge, but I think it's important because it applies to all our podcasts. And I share it here today because more than on other podcasts, we will stick to a few principles today related to the topic of not wanting to be sold. We've got quite a few other podcasts that focus on the practices and the tools related to these topics. But if you can grasp the few principles first, that true north will give you clarity. And when our vision is clear, our decisions are easy as to what practices and tools we need to implement. So in this podcast, we'll cover 4 principles that help us make sense of what seems to be a contradiction: that nobody wants to be sold and everybody wants to buy. That by itself is not a principle, but a reality. It's a fact, a business condition. We're going to share a few principles that help us deal with that data. I'll start with one very important overarching principle for overcoming the reluctance to be sold, coupled with the desire to buy. That principle is this: serve, don't sell. In another podcast, we give you a tool called the 4 walking in commitments. And these commitments remind us we are not here today to separate somebody from some of their money. We are here today to make their lives and their business better if we can. If our product or service will do that, great. And if we can see that what we have to offer them won't serve them as well as what someone else can offer, we should send them over to the other source. Zig Ziglar had it nailed. You can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. Focus on serving, and in the long run, you and your company will be better off for it. Over the years, I have leaned on another simple principle to acquiring new clients, which is also a cornerstone of being a helpful human being. It builds on serve, don't sell. And that principle is meet people where they are, not where you want them to be. This is a bigger problem than we might first perceive. It's not simplistic, it is simple. And the simple things are where we find the powerful principles. Over 80% of business owners are what I term craftspeople or product-focused business owners. A few more are market-focused, and even fewer are systems-focused. We don't need too many market-focused people. I'm one of those, and they create a lot of disruption in the world, take bigger risks, and can sometimes create a wake that tips other people's boats over. And while systems-focused people are probably more prevalent than either of the other 2 business owner types, most systems-focused people are in big businesses, running the giant machines that are corporations. If you haven't taken our Apex profile to find out which one of these 3 is your primary, which is your secondary, and which one you have very little of, go to apexprofile.com and take 10 minutes to see which one you are right now. Like anything, your profile can change over time. It's not a character trait, but a way in which you are interacting with your business right now. This is the only psychometric test that is written specifically for business owners using business owner questions and business owner descriptions. So go to apexprofile.com, and under the price field, there is a promo code field. If you plug in C as in Charles, F as in Frank, B as in boy, CFB50 in that box, That will cut the price in half just for listening to this podcast. Have your leaders take it as well. It's a great way to show how valuable your differences are to create a great team. So if you are one of the 80% that are product-focused craftspeople, you probably don't realize how your intense love for your product or service, how it is made and delivered, and how great the impact is. You probably don't realize that all of that actually gets in the way of people buying the product or service you're so in love with. Because we're so in love with it, we get mired in details and share things that nobody cares about. And we try and draw them into our world when we should get into theirs. It's real work to step back and figure out what they actually need to know about your product or service and focus on just that. And it's even more work to figure out how to meet them where they are as uninformed newbies to what you're selling and to meet them there. You can't wait to share how your chair is made and how long it will last and why it's better than anybody else's. But that passion is actually one of the things that will make it harder for people to get to where they want to buy because you're selling too hard and you're not understanding what keeps them at a suspicious distance from you. If you want to be successful at getting your product or service out into the hands of potential customers, we all first need to find out who they are, what they want, and even more important, what they actually need, which might be different than what they say they want. In short, we need to employ 3 other critical principles here before we ever try and sell anything. So the first principle of business development is serve, don't sell. The second principle is meet people where they are, not where you want them to be, in love with your product. And the third, which builds on these, is be relational, not transactional. Great business development people know that if they focus on building a true relationship with their potential customer by meeting them where they are, not where we want them to be, they're much more likely to sell something than the guy who is rapidly focused on transacting a sale. Put relationships first, not just superficially, but to the point you would be willing to not sell something to someone, even if it is what they needed, but to the point that you would be willing to not sell to someone if it wasn't what they needed, even if they wanted it. Are you willing to lose a sale to preserve a relationship? That's a great test of this principle. Do what is best for them as people, not for what is best for your pocketbook. If you focus on being transactional, people will smell that. We call it commission breath, and it's not going to end with a sale. The fourth principle of serving and meeting people where they are and being relational is one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from his book of the same name. That principle is seek first to understand, not to be understood. This is counterlogical to the idea that I have to get them to understand how great my product or service is, how pure my motives are, and how much they need what I'm offering. A lot of great research shows that people want to be understood first, and then they're much more likely to want to understand you and your product. They will mirror your approach. If you are transactional and trying hard to sell, they're going to be transactional and resist you. If you are relational, they are much more likely to see that and embrace that approach as well. So how do we get people to see that we understand them and are focused on their best interests? We have another podcast where I talk about the 4 buying questions, which are designed to get you out of a transactional mode and into a listening mode. And in another future podcast, I'm going to share the value of Tier 3 listening, which is the holy grail of business development. Tier 3 listening will be very disruptive to everything the industrial age taught you about how to sell something. These 2 practices, the 4 buying questions and Tier 3 listening, are great ways to live out the 4 principles we share today. But you can also come up with your own practices and tools around these 4 principles. Check out these podcasts for how to become world-class at understanding others so that they will want to understand you and your product. As you apply these 4 fundamental business development principles and then develop practices and tools to make them your own, you will experience what so many business owners have learned. They can stop selling because the script has been flipped and people are actually wanting to buy from you. Let's finish with the desired result. This is not a principle, it's a result, a measurement of whether these 4 principles have found their way into your business development practices and tools. The result we should be looking for before we try to sell anything is that your potential customer is saying to themselves and maybe even to you, oh, you get me. If they see that you truly get them, you have flipped the script from not wanting to be sold to them wanting to buy. Being seen, felt, and heard is one of the great yearnings of every human being. And when you serve, when you meet people where they are, when you prize relationships above sales, and when you seek to truly understand, not to be understand, you will have met that great yearning in that person sitting across from you. And they're going to say, oh, you get me. And even if you don't make the sale, you have made a difference, made a friend, and sent somebody out into the world who is much more likely to refer you to somebody else. So let's flip the script. Stop selling. Focus on serving and watch people begin to lean into what you have to offer. I'll see you in the next podcast.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.